Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Roundup Show. I am your host, Kobe Zinn, and I am joined here, as always, by my co-hosts, Tony Flores and Andres Martinez. How you guys doing today?
Howdy.
Uh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good as always, and I'm super excited here today to be talking a little bit about the topic here, which is basically when should a home seller or somebody who is looking to sell their home start preparing to get their home ready for the market, and also what are some of the things that they should be doing to improve their homes in order to get the best return on their investment and obviously get the best results that they want. And again, who better to talk to about that than two real estate agents who are in the state of Texas, and also real estate investing investors as well, who are very experienced with this. But before we dig into that, let's catch up a little bit here with our co-hosts. Andres, what have you been up to in the past week or so?
I've been helping clients. Just had a couple of closings with a seller and a buyer. Also, it seems like the market's starting to pick up a little. A lot of leads came in. I was happy that last month I used my time and trying to communicate and educate myself on where we thought the market was going. The interest rates have gone down, so now I can present my clients with deals that are out there. It's still a buyer's market. It's a very good buyer's market, and even for sellers, I actually sold a house under 70 days, so I'm proud of that.
That's awesome, man, and congrats on that. And yeah, it definitely seems like the market's picking up a little bit here, and it's not quite as bad as it was back in 2023. But what about you, Tony? What have you been up to in the past couple of days or so?
Keeping busy. This for the month of February 2024, I was able to help get some foreclosures stopped. So I had three foreclosures that we were able to help my clients get these foreclosures stopped, because what happened was they were underwater. They owed more than the house was worth, and they were unable to make payments. So happy about that. Working, and I'm also working with one of my mentees, helping him get his transaction closed, and also working with some new buyers as well, and someone that's inherited a property that's ready to sell that property. So working with her, getting things ready for listing. So that'll be coming up very shortly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, it sounds like everybody's still very active in the market right now, even though it's what's considered traditionally in real estate the slower months, right, in the beginning of the year. And I think it's a really good topic to talk about right now in these couple of months, right, in January, February, maybe closer to March if you're listening or watching this, which is there's a lot of sellers right now, a lot of homeowners who are probably starting to consider selling their home in the next couple of months, moving into later spring, early summer, because that's usually considered the hot months of real estate when people start putting their homes in the market, and activity really starts to pick up. So then the question is, if you are somebody who is looking to sell your home in the next couple of months, or maybe even in the next year or so, that's something you're considering. When should you actually start preparing to make these decisions, and when should you start planning for the sale of your home? So we'll start with you, Tony, and then we'll go to you, Andre.
All right. So that's a great timing and great question. Really, in order to prepare your home for sale, there's always, you really need to do that throughout the entire year. So like, if what I mean by that is, just through the duration of your ownership, if you have some drywall that had a hole in it, does it get patched up, or different things like that. So always just general maintenance of your home is a great way to prepare your home for eventually when you're ready to sell. Second time is, it's really kind of property specific. I wouldn't have to say getting your home ready for sale, because you might walk into somebody's home and think it's just pristine and it's showroom ready. So those homes, there's probably not a whole lot of time. So going back from that, if there's just typical home, there's going to be more clutter and things like that. We'll talk about different things to take care of, but really, it probably depends on the home. But three to 4 months is a good time to start kind of mentally preparing and actually physically preparing for the sale of the house.
Yeah.
Of course, talk to your professional, real estate professional, and get some ideas from them as well during that time.
Yep, absolutely. And I like what you said there. Which is, it's really kind of like a year-long process, right? You should be continuous as you prepare the sale of your home. So, Andres, I know you've been helping a lot of clients recently. You just mentioned you got a listing sold and quite quickly in the past couple of months here. So, what was your advice as far as when should somebody start thinking about and actually preparing their home for it to be market ready?
So as far as for me, when I'm work with a client, I would like to be involved myself about 6 to 4 weeks out, just because there is specific information that we need to make sure that we have available. Like if there's any repairs that have been done to the property during like the duration of the person living in this property, we would want to have that handy when we do like a disclosure. Um, Anything that pertains to maintenance, like your AC, you would want that to be done and updated. The one thing is that would that information prepared, it helps the transaction flow a little bit smoother. Because one of the things is anytime I am working with a buyer, one thing that's a concern for a buyer is, hey, how long is the AC unit gonna last? No one can tell you how long an existing unit's gonna last, but if you see that that AC unit's been maintenance in recent months, and if it's working well, it kind of makes the buyer a little bit more comfortable moving forward with that property. So those are things that we might want to do sooner than later. Uh, Big questions are like, when was the last time the roof repaired, or was the roof placed within the last year, 5 years? That's information that we would like to have readily available, because those are questions buyers ask.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because for somebody who maybe have owned their home for quite an extended amount of time, these are information like that's information they may have forgotten or just kind of not maybe not updated themselves on. When was this roof replaced, or when how long has this AC unit been running and been available, right? When did you get this and that done? So these are all really great points for sellers to start preparing that information, right? Because when you are kind of in the negotiation process with a potential buyer, this is all information that you and your agent would need to know in order to provide the best disclosures, right? Everything's making sure that everybody knows that information as well. So you brought up a good point there, which is basically some of the things that a seller can do in order to actually better position themselves to sell their house for a higher price point. So we'll start with you on this one, Andres. But what are some things that a seller can do to improve their homes, essentially make improvements either cosmetically or structurally or whatever with their homes, in order to get the best return on their price whenever they are ready to sell?
One thing that really sticks out is, like I said, the HVAC unit, making sure the HVAC unit is maintenance. Other things is sometimes you could buy fixtures. They're not too expensive, but if you can make sure they all match throughout the house, uh, that's something that buyers look into. So as a seller, I would want to have a house that has matching fixtures, flooring. At most, you just want to have like two different floorings. You don't want to have like three different floorings or four different floorings, because at that point, some people not might not like that. So if you have carpet in the rooms and then in the wet areas you have laminate or tile, instead of having multiple floorings, like an office is one, the playroom's a different one. That for some people could kind of steer them away from being interested in that home, and so things like that could benefit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like that because I think a lot of times, right, you don't want to have too much of you don't want to drive people away, right? You kind of want to keep it a little bit more generic, because that way you can draw a bigger pool of buyers. And same thing for you, Tony. You've been an investor, you've been flipping houses yourself as well, so you have a little bit of extra experience in this realm as far as what is going to get the best return on your investment. So, what would you say to somebody who is looking to get their house repaired to sell? What are some of the things that they should definitely do, and what are some of the things that maybe they should avoid spending money on that could be a waste?
Right. So the things that, of course, you always hear, the kitchens and bathrooms are super, super important. So when you're talking about the decision makers, those are your buyers. That's going to be typically the hierarchy. It's going to be the the lady of the house. She's going to be the one that makes decisions. So what are the types of things that she's looking? Does everything else fall in place? So how do the kitchens look? How do the bathrooms? What's the condition of the bathrooms? Yes, I do believe that matching fixtures are always nice. Doing some decluttering, making it as visually appealing as possible. And when we're living our everyday lives, we're not necessarily always thinking like, okay, does this look great here? Or does this look, okay, this is functional, I'm using it, but it doesn't necessarily have a great appeal. So having someone else come in with a fresh set of eyes is always a good idea. I've helped people as well. My clients actually brought in a professional stager to talk about what can they use with their existing furniture, and how can we kind of repurpose some other things and move some things around, which helped get the listing sold faster, because there was just a lot of stuff there. And so excuse me, decluttering is super important. um, so sometimes that might mean renting a temporary storage facility, which just gets some stuff out of the house. um, yeah, having clean, clutter-free counters is super important. The condition of the yard, and is everything functional? Just do things make sense for someone coming from an outside perspective? So I think those are super, super things. So I can't, say specific. I do this a lot, really, on a visual inspection of the property, just seeing what stands out in my mind. I want things to stand out in a positive way. If anything stands out in a negative way or just has a big question mark to me, I will ask my client, the seller, to what can we do about this? For an example, I went to a house the other day. It was last week. I'm getting ready to list it, and the landscape timbers were all nice and neat, except there was one with like a cutout, like a V-shaped cutout, and it appeared that something had been there. Something kind of was maybe a bigger bush, and it was, at this point, it's dead. So I said, well, you know, what about, let's just continue. Let's just make it straight, and get it sorted out so that things don't look odd. So if things don't visually look appealing, they're just gonna have like a client will be kind of semi confused in a subconscious way. We just want to make lines seamless and things just look really as appealing as possible.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I remember you told a story actually on this show, and that, I think, a couple episodes back, might have been the last one, where you actually helped a client who had a tetherball pole without a tetherball on it, right? So that way it kind of stood out as something odd or weird, but you decided to put actually a tetherball on there and actually help the buyer client create a good memory, right? Because that was something that I actually used to do. So it is important for people who are preparing their homes to put on the market to really think of it from, what if you were the buyer, right? Would you see something in your space that is in your house right now that could be odd or weird or stands out in a negative way?
And at some point it just becomes the norm, because they probably used it years ago. They lost a tetherball, or just threw it out, and just got overlooked over time. But having a fresh set of eyes is really, really important. Another client, they had a greenhouse which was really important to them. They actually wanted to take it with them. This was a listing where I was able to help them buy before they sold their house. So they pulled that greenhouse, but then what was left was a big open area with dead grass and pebbles. So instead of it leaving it blank, so that's the question mark. People turn around the corner and say, what's this big empty spot for? Something's obviously missing. So I put a horseshoe pit right there. So it turned it into a positive experience, positive visual versus a question mark. I mean, it just turned that area around.
Yep, absolutely. These are all things to consider. So, I mean, the other question I think a lot of people have when it comes to getting their house market ready, quote unquote, is whether or not they should even consider having a professional stager come in and actually basically, either bring in, new furniture or just rearrange current furniture. So I'd love to kind of get your guys' opinions on this because, you've been helping a lot of sellers flipping houses. So, Andres, we'll start with you on this one. What would you suggest to somebody who is considering getting a home stager or not getting a professional home stager?
That would be on a case by case basis. Sometimes, if the person is living there, and if they're able to make sure that the house is nice and clean, and that you're able to show it, at that point you wouldn't seek out a stager. But if a house is empty, one thing that people benefit from a stager is you could kind of get an idea on how a client or a buyer might be able to use that space benefit. One thing Tony said earlier, declutter. Decluttering is important just because they can make a space feel smaller, right? So just case by case, um, if no one's living there, it might be a good idea to stage, and then just understanding what area and market you're in. If you're in a higher end, you definitely probably want to stage it, and it just depends what buyer you're trying to attract. So it depends on different variables. So I would just take everything into consideration, but it can benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It really does depend on the type of buyer you're trying to attract, right? Because if you are in kind of a higher price point area, you really want to make sure everything looks nice because you're competing with other properties that are kind of in that similar price range as well. So you want to make sure that, your property doesn't stand out, like Tony was saying, in a bad way, right? So, Tony, same question for you. I mean, having done, work with sellers and done your own flips as well, would you rather just kind of keep it vacant or would you rather have, definitely avoid keeping it vacant and having people actually come in or maybe rearrange existing furniture or add in furniture to make it seem like a place that has already been lived in?
I think staging is definitely a great idea. You might see online right now they have a lot of virtual staging because
Hmm.
people want to visualize how the space is going to be used, and a lot of times it's just light staging. So yeah, and there's just like any other service, staging companies have there's different types of staging companies. Some are more of the budget friendly, and some can go just very beautiful, extravagant. So the price point of the house typically will dictate if it would benefit from staging. But if it's vacant, I believe it's a great idea. It's a risk versus reward. There's lots of studies that show that staging a property is actually more beneficial. That you'll have more buyer, people show up and more people make offers. So take that for what it's worth. I think it's great idea to stage, and if not, again, I've worked with someone that was living there, and I had a professional stager just come in and just rework the existing spaces she had with the furniture she had as well.
Andres, you're going to add something?
Yeah. So one thing with the virtual staging. So I once had an open house in Terrell Hills, and that's a very affluent area here in San Antonio. And everybody got an idea of how the property looked virtually. But then when they actually showed up to the open house, they were actually a little disappointed that the furniture wasn't in there. And they were like, "Oh, I really wish the furniture was in here on how my furniture." Um, and what they wanted, their perception was, how can I take my couches? Are they? I could compare them. So, what if the couches that are staged are big, and they have smaller couches, or they have bigger couches? They wanted to compare if their furniture would fit in that specific space. So, but virtual staging is actually really nice too. But I did have that, and like I said, it was in a nice affluent area in Terrell Hills. So people, that open house, I got that feedback.
That's a great observation. So what that kind of, if we want to dig into that a little bit, what that could you could glean from that is a virtual staging online really is helpful to get more people there, but once they're there, they do want to see furniture in place. So um, sounds like we probably answered that question. And another thing is, I've got a really interesting source of furniture and staging ability that it's not from a staging company. It's a unique option. And if you want to know more about that, message myself or Andres or even Kobe, and we'll tell you what the secret is. So we'll save that one for later.
I've seen a little bit of that, Tony. We're gonna keep it a secret on here. So, but no, it's absolutely you're absolutely right. You both. It's very important to get your home staged, right? You know, Andres, you mentioned people who even seen it online. They want to see it in person as well. So these are things that are really important to people because people are moving in with the existing furniture. Maybe maybe they're moving into a new house and they're looking to buy new furniture that could potentially match up with this new house. So for them, it's got to be very important to see what are the dimensions, right? Where does the furniture go, and comparing it to the ones that either they already have or the ones that they're looking to buy to actually put into their new home as well. So
I
definitely,
did an open house for like Tony one time on one of his properties, and the way the stager laid out the living room, everyone that walked in there were amazed on how they made the space look bigger and how functional that layout was. And their feedback was, I would have never thought of that. They did so it could also give a potential buyer or a client ideas on how they could uh, use the same layout.
Yeah,
yeah.
great point. Yeah, because a lot of these stagers, they have they have degrees or they have interior design expertise. So we're the experts when it comes to marketing, getting people inside the door, and they're they've got definitely a touch for what they do as well. So it's great great observation.
Yeah, and that's another vendor, right, in the real estate agents tool belt that as real estate agents, you guys all have. So, and that's a really good kind of really good transition into the last question that I really want to wrap up with here, which is if there is a person out there who is looking to sell their homes in maybe the next 6, 12 months, whatever, how early on in that process should they be having conversations with another real estate professional? So we'll start with you, Andres, and then we'll wrap up with you, Tony.
I would say as soon as they have the thought, just so they can get things prepared and get everything squared away. As far as I'm a stickler for like documentation and disclosing and making sure because I want to protect my client, right? So disclose, document, like Ginger says, right, Tony?
Yeah.
and um, and then as far as just I like to go and visit the property, even if it's 4 months before. The reason being is we are all do this. So we all have these great ideas for these great spaces, and we make it unique to ourselves. Like I might have a Spurs room or a Dallas Cowboys room, and that works for me. It has value to me. Trying to communicate that to a seller, sometimes um, they got to understand what brings value to someone. Um, Maybe you might want to do something a little bit more neutral. And then you also don't want to invest in something that's too extravagant. You got to understand the market and who you're targeting as a buyer. So just being able to go over all that information with the potential seller can get them prepared. So when you get ready for that listing, I think the first time they think about selling, they should communicate with a real estate agent.
That's absolutely right. There's a lot of insights that an agent can provide, right? Like you were just saying, the last thing you want is for like a seller with a Cowboys room and then having a Packers fan come in and try to buy that house, right? They're gonna be turned off right away. So we'll wrap up. We'll wrap up here with you, Tony. How early on in the process should somebody be consulting a real estate professional and having those conversations?
Well, okay, so we're in February right now. I'm working with someone that's getting ready to list this coming week, and I started talking to her in in October. So there's really either way, whether they start talking to us a week before they list with us or 5 months ahead of time. Our fee, what we do, the value that we provide for them, will either be convinced in that 1 week and then after that point, or the 5 months plus all the time, after the listing. So essentially what I'm saying is it doesn't cost to get a phone call with a real estate agent. We're there to help them, and we can have perspectives and different ideas that they might not have thought about. So it's better really to do it sooner rather than later. Same thing goes with buyers, because there might be things that they need to do to prepare for things. And we can talk about that one in a different episode. But regarding sellers, yeah, we can come in with a different perspective and different ideas and things that they haven't thought about, and things that just might have been on the back burner that aren't at the front of mind, but it'll stand out. So the answer is sooner rather than later. And we don't bite. I haven't bid anyone yet.
Not yet.
Another thing to add is your real estate agent and your local area understands the market. Here in San Antonio, we're a big military city, USA. We're going to start PCS season here in April. And you want to make sure that if you're thinking about listing your property, the best time would be when you can have the most people transitioning. So the more people that your property can be available for, agent would understand the market. So I think that's something that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just another great insight right there, right? PCS season. I think there's, if you weren't in that space, if you didn't know about it, then that's not information you would have known, right? So make sure to start speaking to real estate agents, real estate professionals as soon as you can, and as soon as you have the thoughts of potentially selling your home. And again, if you are thinking about selling your home in the next month or so, or maybe even next 5, 6, 12 months into the future, if you're having these thoughts, make sure to reach out to either Andres or Tony. We'll make sure to leave their information in the description down below. And maybe you can even get access to Tony's secret staging strategy, right? But other than that, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you guys for sharing a lot of value today. And we will see you on the next episode of the Real Estate Roundup. Take care.
Take care.